We have identified 9 core characteristics that mark an individual as having high potential. Drive, the unrelenting need for achievement and constant self-improvement. Resiliency, the ability to persevere in the face of challenge and bounce back from setbacks. Adaptability, the ability to adjust according to the situation, learn new things, innovate, and try new methods. Humility, self-confidence in one's ability while understanding that there's always room for improvement and that others' experiences and knowledge are valuable. Integrity and adherence to not only what is legal, but also what is right. Effective intelligence, the ability to apply one's knowledge to real-world scenarios. Team ability, the ability to function as part of a team, placing the success of the whole above the needs of the self. Curiosity, a desire to explore the unknown and question the status quo in pursuit of better, more effective solutions. And the last one is emotional strength, a positive attitude, high empathy, and control over one's own emotions, especially in chaotic and stressful situations. These traits are heavily emphasized in special operations and explain why many veterans go on to accomplish incredible things in the business world after their military service. For instance, many companies, including Johnson & Johnson with Alex Gorski, FedEx with Fred Smith, Bridgewater, David McCormick, and 7-Eleven, Joe DePinto, to name a few, are run by veterans. These 9 attributes are foundational to success, no matter the industry. So when you say based on our research and interviews, is this stuff that Dr. Cotton kind of put forward, or where'd you guys come up with these?
So it's a combination of what Dr. Cotton, sort of his discovery, and then we also went and we interviewed people that ran the assessment selection for these different communities, MARSOC, the Navy SEALs, the Green Berets. We worked with a amazing individual. His name is Brian Decker. He was a lieutenant colonel. He was in charge of the Special Forces assessment and selection process and actually sort of revolutionized it, really around the concept of the whole man concept. And so each of these communities have a set of core attributes they're looking for. And it goes back really quickly. You did make a point about, you hire somebody who interviews extremely well and they end up not working out. And that's what we call personality versus character. What you did was you hired based off personality and likability. And what is personality? That's really your external show to the world, where character is the inner attributes that drive your behaviors. Yeah, and we've all fallen for that.
It's like your customer-facing self versus your internal-facing self.
Exactly. And one of the things we talk about in the book is like the last thing you want to hire for, and people get this, this culture fit. Are they a culture fit? And it sort of becomes this just ad hoc term they throw out, but they don't really understand. And when people say culture fit, a lot of times what they mean is, do I like this person? And what we talk about in the book is that some of the most high-performing SEALs that I served with and you served with, I didn't like. We were professionals and worked well together. But when the job was done, he went and hung out with his inner circle and I went and hung with mine. But likability for professionals is not a requirement. Now, if you guys just conflict and it creates a toxic culture, that's a different thing. But the least important thing to me was likability. If the individual performs and he can actually put his self-needs aside or her self-needs aside for the common good of the team, that's somebody that can be part of the culture. As long as their values align with our culture. They're ethical.
Yeah, I mean, I think here's the deal on that from my perspective. If there's someone that works hard and is there to support the team, I like them. I don't know anyone that has. Here's the interesting. I know people that have good personalities and bad character. They exist. But I don't know of anyone, and so I might not like someone that has a good personality, but and you can think, when I think of these people, I just think of famous people, right? There's all these famous people that they have these personalities, and then all of a sudden the story breaks that they're total dirtbags, right? And they're whatever, they've got the most heinous things going on in their personal lives. So you've got that where someone has a good personality, their forward-facing personality is real positive, but then behind closed doors, they're scumbags. But if you flip that over, I can't think of anybody that has a good character, like they're a good character, but they have a bad personality. I don't. It's hard for me to think about. Now, is there someone that maybe has a good character and they're maybe too direct, or maybe they don't talk a lot, or whatever. But normally, if their ego's in check and they're there to support the team, I mean, I can't. Yeah, it's pretty rare.
How about a better way of putting it is there were people that were high performers that were just sort of socially awkward. Maybe they were totally 100%. Introverted, or just like they were too direct,
right,
where it burned sometimes bridges. You understood their personality, but other people didn't. Back to the attributes. So Brian Decker is now the director of player development for the Indianapolis Colts. And so took what he learned in Special Forces assessment and selection. He's now applying it. He's been in the NFL. He's worked for 2 teams for about 6 years. When they revolutionized, and it pains me to say this, but I can put my ego aside, the Special Forces, Army Special Forces community was much further ahead in terms of creating a structured and professionalized assessment of how they select Special Forces soldiers into their community. SEALs, it was just sort of this oral history passed down. And when I went over there as a guest instructor at their Phase 2, which is their small unit training, that's when I was really exposed to their whole process and this thing called the whole man concept, and the fact that they were looking for specific attributes. So when they redesigned their assessment and selection, they created tasks, much like an interview process, where they're trying to elicit certain behaviors, whether good or bad. And that's what they're looking for. And so that translates to companies. It doesn't matter, what your interview process is, or if you have written tests, what you're trying to elicit with every question should have meaning behind it in an interview process. And ultimately that question has to drive at behaviors. And people call this, in the civilian world, behavioral interviews. They're one of the best techniques if you do it well.
Yeah, the German army, as they were trying to get their officers to step up and implement decentralized command and be able to make moves, one of the things that I've read about they would do is they would give them, here's the rules that you have to follow for this training operation. And the only way that they could actually successfully complete the mission would be to break the rules. And so it was a test to see if they would break the rules in order to accomplish the mission. And then there was, and look, even if you didn't break the rules, it didn't necessarily mean that you were a bad person. It just, now we know more about you, right? Yes. Now I know more about you. And we got into some of this on when we were up at Gettysburg for EF Battlefield. The fact that Lee didn't know his 2 subordinates as well as he had before Jackson died. So he's talking to Ewell, and he's telling Ewell that he wants him to do something, but he doesn't know him well. He doesn't know his personality well enough. So when he tells Ewell, hey, take that thing if you can, take that hill if you can, and Ewell goes over and says, well, I can't. He could have. It just would have been a gut check. And if he would have told Jackson to take that hill, Jackson would have taken that hill. So this idea behind setting up questions or situations or problems that you have to solve that reveal some part of your character is a very cool thing.
When you mentioned earlier about when people come to you and ask, what's the best interview question? The question back to them is, how are you screening for character? And it's one of the things we go into this book is that most of those questions are about experience. Do you have this objective experience? They're not screening for character. And so, with the research that we did with Dr. Josh Cotton brought to us, and when we figured these out, our point is that, once you meet that simple experiential gate, when you've got the basics, you need to start screening for character. And you go company by company by company. And I hate in some ways to say this because I see it all the time, which is executives are almost the worst at this, picking other executives. And they don't screen for character. They're looking for, did you work at the competition? How did you move the revenue? How did you improve customer success? How did you move a product along? They don't go down into character. And I've sat in interview after interview after interview, and it's all objective traits or basic subjective traits that don't go deep into character. And that's what's missing.
People will default to objective things because they're measurable. Yeah. They're easy. It's the easy button. The subjective is what's hard. He talked about defining success. One of the mistakes we see with companies too is they just have one interview process across the organization. you actually have to create talent profiles for each of the roles and functions and levels of, and that's why it takes a lot of time. So what's going to make a great engineer in a company is vastly different from what makes a great salesperson. So a lot of the times why companies don't define success and they're not good at the interview process is they haven't taken the time to create talent profiles for the different levels and the different functions within the community.